If you a sneakerhead, homie, put your hands in the air. Close your eyes and reminisce about your favorite pair. Take a minute to answer, cause the question ain't fair. Probably had 2 or 3 that you love to wear. Probably had 1 or 2 that was multiple pairs. And probably had 1 pair that you never would wear. Yeah, you know what I mean. All you sneakerheads, here we go.
I'm sorry, I was jamming to the new intro music. I know y'all like it, right? If you're a sneakerhead, I know you like it. And we're basketball people on this podcast, so I know you like the song. Anyways, welcome back. I am Casey, the remix schedule with the exclusive Dallas Mavericks podcast right here. It's been a minute, so we're going to cover games 3, 4, and 5, and my prediction for game 6. And so let's get into it. Got a lot to cover here, um, and uh, and I might tell you where I've been and things I've been doing, uh, you know, this week. Anyways, let's go. Let's go. Game 3. All right. Um, Game 3, Mavericks controlled it early, really until the third quarter. It was a back and it it's this series has been as most basketball is a game of runs, and throughout game 3 there was runs back and forth. um, but the Mavericks really controlled the game until the third quarter, and that's when the Thunder made their big run. And but the Mavs responded, ended up leading after 3 quarters, 82-76, where Tim Hardaway Jr. he hit that really big three at the end of the third quarter to extend that lead a little bit, and that's just part of, I think, the experience of this Mavericks team, uh, with being in the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago. Obviously we didn't make the playoffs last year, but this, even though there's young pieces to the team, there's experience on the team. Luca has plenty of experience at this point in his career, even though he's 25 years old. Obviously Kyrie has experience, and we're going to get into a lot more Kyrie later. But you know, these other guys, they're not afraid. They're not rookies. They're not 1 or 2 years in the league, and they're showing up. PJ Washington has 27 points in Game 3, which was pretty amazing. And I've already mentioned PJ is becoming a guy. I was really, before these playoffs started, I was ultimately really expecting the Mavericks to try to add a somewhat big time third piece, but the Gafford and Washington trade, I think, have solidified the team. Uh, Not only PJ stepping up offensively, but their defense, and they've the transformation in this team on the defensive end has been pretty incredible. If you watch them the first part of the season to the second part after the trade, I mean, it's night and day. You know, you get Kyrie Irving and Luca playing defense. I mean, it's kudos to Jason Kidd on that part. But back to the game, Irving's floater in the fourth quarter really helped seal that. The left-handed floater that was pretty incredible. But every time the Thunder tried to push, Mavericks answered in Game 3. Ended up with a 105-101 lead. I mentioned PJ Washington, 27 points. I think you got to start. I think Thunder, really when he was starting in Game 3, I think you really had to start changing your defensive philosophy on running someone or trapping Luca and Kyrie, because right now these other guys are killing you, and I know you got to pick your poison, but it's almost to the point where you would want Luca and Kyrie to get 30 and you limit everyone else. It's kind of how I would guard OKC is Shy is going to get his. You got to control the other guys. That's really what the Chet Holmgrens, the Jalen Williams, those guys you got to kind of keep under wraps. And that way, I think that's the best way to be successful against the Thunder. So, great Game 3 overall by the Mavs, and it's where they started to take what we felt at the time take control of the series, going up 2-1, and then Game 4 happens. This was a rough one to watch. You know what happened? We were all like feeling good after Game 3. We're like, oh, we can go up 3-1. You know, you got the Stars on the same night. They could go up 3-1. You know, um, and the Stars end up doing it, and the Mavs didn't, and then it flipped in Game 5. But we'll get you'll hear more about the Stars on the other part of the podcast. Um, you know, the Thunder. I think it's an interesting note here. I think I heard on the broadcast. The Thunder haven't lost 3 in a row since like November. So to expect them to drop 3 in a row, no matter how good you're playing, is a tough task. And beating any team 3 times in a row is a tough or a tall order, no matter the sport. If you have your division rival in football and you see them in the playoffs, a lot of times that third time that guy, the team that's lost the 2 previous times, ends up winning. It's just hard to beat people 3 times in a season. Uh, it's much less 3 games in a row. Um, PJ had 21. He had a solid game in Game 4. Dallas, they controlled the game early. I believe they for most of the game until about uh, the third quarter, going into the third, going into the fourth. And it was 54-43 at half in favor of Dallas, and everyone's feeling good. I think everyone was like, all right, we're going up 3-1. We're going to end this series in 5 games, man. We're going to end it in 5. And you know we the Mavs didn't. They didn't end up doing it. And you know a huge part of that was free throws. uh Free throws really cost the Mavs. They end up shooting 52.2%. You're not going to win games like that. That is probably one of the worst free throw shooting games they had all year. Not to mention, had 13 turnovers to 7. That's never a good thing. Uh, you fouled less than OKC. You hit more threes, and you actually shot a better field goal percentage. 40.9, basically 41% to 38% in the field goal percentage department, and you hit 5 more 3 pointers than them. The Thunder only shot 25.9%, 7 for 27, so 26%. Uh, the big one was the free throw shooting. That's what lost the Mavericks the game. Everyone knows it. I wouldn't expect to see that again, which you did not see that in Game 5. And it was kind of an anomaly game. You go through this process, and you end up going to having some stinkers, and you hope not to have those in the playoffs because you're supposed to be playing at a higher level when it comes playoff time. Uh, Kyrie Irving had just a terrible game. He had 9 assists. I'll take between 9 and whatever number of assists you want. You want to go up? I was going to say 9 to 15 assists a game, because for me, a point guard's true value is in the PRF, points responsible for statistic, not necessarily points scored. But this team needs Kyrie to score, and he hasn't had a big game yet. He's had good games, but he hasn't had a superstar game. And I kind of expect that in Game 6. I'm not trying to jump ahead necessarily, but I do expect that to be coming here pretty soon. You know, the Mavs actually led the game till about 3:22 left in the fourth in Game 4, and then everyone knows I don't like watching Chet Holmgren play. Get that man a sandwich, uh, feed him just steak and bacon grease for a year, and put some weight on that dude. But he hits a big three at 4:22, and that's really where the Thunder start taking control of the game, and the Mavericks can never find it. They've missed their free throws. Um, and ultimately, they end up falling 196. And giving up, they only gave up 100 points, which is a solid number. Um, and so, yeah, just free throws, rebounding, turnovers, they're all key stats to wins and losses. You lost two out of those three, not gonna get it done. Now, people were all like, "What's going on with the Mavs?" And I think most people in the Dallas Fort Worth area, in Texas, that are Mavericks fans, on the whole scale, I think we knew we weren't going to see another free throw performance like Game 4 going into Game 5. I thought we were going to see a bounce back game by the Mavericks because I think the Mavericks proved in round one, and even though the Thunder are a first seed, the Mavericks are proving that they're a better team, a deeper team, and they more experience. I've said this before: young teams don't win in the playoffs in the NBA. It's been proven uh, over since the existence of the NBA. You have very rare anomalies of any type of young teams winning championships or even making the finals. And normally you need a good 3 or 4 year run in the playoffs to get those battle scars out of the way. And the Thunder, go from being the worst team in the league last year or somewhere around there to being the first seed. There's not a lot of built up, you don't have a lot of skins on the wall, as some folks would say. And ultimately, this is going to be I think it's going to be one of their scars. It's going to heal over. It's going to scab, and they're going to start turning into a problem for the Western Conference for however long they can keep their stars. Because we obviously know the Oklahoma City Thunder have a tendency not to keep their stars. But Game 5, Mavericks come out, win 104-92. Luka has a triple double. That was big. Um, so Luka, it's 31, 11, and 10. So big time triple double there. At the end of the first, it was a back and forth first quarter. It was a fun one to watch. Not a ton of scoring, 24-22 in favor of Dallas. But by the end of the half, Dallas did take control. But I'm going to tell you, that dunk by Jalen Williams at the end of the first half, whew, that was nasty. Oh man, I forgot who it was over, but God dog, that was. Oh man, that if that would have shut down the park back in the day, like we would have just said, look, fella, you were guarding them, you just need to go home and rethink this, because that's what would happen. It was nasty, but you want to know what was even better than that? The full court pass to Lively by Luka Doncic. That was one of the most beautiful basketball plays. I put that one up there with the Dwayne Wade full court pass to LeBron. I'm not saying it's better. Don't be hating on me. I know my bias is I'm not a LeBron fan, but just the length, the finish, and LeBron didn't even dunk that, by the way. But that's still one of the most beautiful plays in basketball history. Wade to LeBron, the one from Luka to Lively is up there. That is an absolutely beautiful basketball play, and yeah, that was exciting to watch. That's all I can say. Um, so in the third quarter, the Mavericks started separating the third, and of course, OKC starts making a run towards the end of the third quarter. Dallas eventually extends the lead in the fourth, and I think it got all the way up to 18. I think is the largest I remember, and they start chipping away. Thunder start chipping away. About 7 minutes left, and they hit a couple threes, and I think it got under 10 points. I do believe, and Mavericks fans are starting to sweat a little bit. I will tell you that. Uh, but as the trend has been these playoffs, the Mavericks have had an answer every single time. And that just shows the type of team they are. And whoever the next round opponent is potentially going to be, if the Mavericks win the series, which I do believe they are going to, whether it's Denver or whether it's Minnesota, uh, the Mavericks are proving they're going to be a problem for either one of those teams, just like those teams are going to be problems for the Mavericks. I mean, you got the defending champs with Jokic, you got the young, hungry man. I'm going to tell you, Anthony Edwards is just. I mean, he's a superstar, and he's got the potential to be even greater than that. And you add Cat, you add, you know, Rudy Gobert, even though Jokic is making him look like he shouldn't have been the defensive player of the year, honestly. Uh, but back to the Mavs Thunder is the Dallas just always seems to have an answer in the series in games they generally control. They've controlled, 4 out of 5 of these games, or I'm sorry, 3 out of these 5 games, and pretty much from start to finish. They may lose the lead or Oklahoma City makes the runs, but someone's always hitting a big three, whether it's Josh Green, whether it's PJ Washington, whether it's Luca in this last game, um, whether it's Kyrie. Um, it's the blocks that even game 4 here was a positive that I forgot to mention. I think between Lively and Gafford, they had 13 blocks or something of that nature. I mean, that's crazy. That's great defense there. Obviously we talked about the free throws already. So going into game 6 tomorrow night, I'm expecting and I'm predicting Mavericks close it out. I think the Mavericks have figured out really what they want to attack offensively. Their defense has been really great. I think you got to live with Shy getting his and control everyone else. And, I think if you take care of the basketball, um, uh, sorry, I apologize. I was just looking up, you know, uh, actually, game 5, I was kind of going to use the turnover stat. The Mavericks actually had 14 turnovers and Thunder only had 6. Generally, that doesn't bode well. But if you take care of the basketball, you rebound better than your opponent, and you shoot a higher free throw percentage, which in game 5, they responded shooting 77%, by the way. And they shot 40% from 3, which is incredible. Uh, I would expect the trend of the wins to continue. I don't think you're going to have a stinker game from the Mavericks. And I would predict them to be moving on after Saturday night and not preparing for a game 7 in Oklahoma City. And if they did end up going to a game 7 in Oklahoma City, I fully expect the Mavericks to win that game. And just because of, I said before the series started, you have 2 out of the best 3 players on the floor, even though they haven't played very well, those 2, in this series overall. And I think this game, I think Kyrie is going to come out to try to establish himself a little bit more aggressive in the first half. He's been kind of setting up his teammates. And I love that from a point guard, to be honest with you. But I think him and Luca got to kind of, I think it's imperative that they get in a rhythm early on in this game. If they don't get in a rhythm early on, I think it could be a struggle of a game. And I think it can mess with the Mavericks' heads a little bit. So I think they need to get in a rhythm. And while teeter-tottering on that balancing act of, we got to get these other guys in a rhythm too, because we need PJ to score, 15, 17 points tonight. We need Josh Green to get 6. We need, Tim Hardaway Jr., if he's going to be playing a lot of minutes, he needs to get in a rhythm. And the big guys need to be rewarded for their effort on defense and the boards and running the floor. And so, but I see a game 6 win by the Mavericks. Call me a homer if you want, but I did predict them to go to the Western Conference Finals against the Nuggets, and that's where I think the road ends for the Mavs. I hope it doesn't, but this has been a fun series. I'm going to be honest, the Thunder scare the hell out of me moving forward after this year with the draft stock they have and how young they are. It's scary how good they're going to be uh, when they start adding this playoff experience into their talent. They're going to be a force to reckon with. And on that note, I will say this is the Maverick squad for the next couple years. And the fact that they're playing this well right now is highly encouraging moving forward. And I think you, as a Mavericks fan base, you got to be excited about that. You know, you know, I fully believe Luka will resign, but uh, you have Kyrie locked up, you have these other guys locked up. Derrick Jones Jr. already said he wants to come back. Throw him a bone, pay him a little more, keep him around with his athleticism and his defense. And this group is dangerous as well, 100%. So be encouraged by that. Even if disaster happens and the Mavericks don't win the series, you could exchange some pieces here and there. I don't think you have to make any type of big drastic changes, and that'll obviously be on some episodes in the off season. But like before the Washington and Gafford trade, I didn't know if we were going to make the playoffs, and I thought they were going to have to make a trade, kind of like Indiana did. I actually saw like a guy like Siakam fitting in with Kyrie and Luka really well. Obviously, he's in Indiana and fighting New York tonight. So, all right, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Except for closing this up, um, you know, the next episode of On Time Sports Talk with my co-host Eddie, the original. Um, we're gonna have our next guest on, our second guest in our tenured history of 6 weeks. But uh, I'm really excited. His name's Gary Rosenberg. He's going to be on. We're going to share some funny and our favorite Navy stories while talking sports. He's a Jets fan, and he's not a bandwagon Jets fan. I'll give him credit. He's been rolling with them forever, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then also, if you made it to this point, I'm give you a little heads up. Uh, I'm I'm joining another crew for a second podcast. It's going to be called Last Call Sports, and our first episode is going to come out next week. So be on the lookout for that with me, Kyle, and Juan. And that one's going to be, I think, you're going to be a lot of fun to listen to on top of On Time Sports Talk. And yeah, a lot of good and fun things coming up. And I appreciate y'all listening. Shout out to the Tel Valhalla Project. Always, it's Red Friday. I decided to wear the Maverick shirt for the podcast, but I've got my red cup. Remember everyone deployed. Shout out to Mission 22 and as well as Camp Hope. And I mentioned this at the beginning. What was I doing all week? Why did it take me so long to get one of these out? I was actually at a Aggie Veterans Conference. Yes, I am a Texas A&M Aggie now. This was my first semester there, but for those, I'm a vet, and so we had a conference there. So I wanted to give a shout out to Comet Signs who put all that together, and as well as the other agencies and companies that were a part of that, and everyone who showed up to Aggie Park last night. Man, that was an incredible experience. So hopefully y'all are listening. I appreciate it so much. That was a great experience for me and all the vets there. And, a big reason why I'm doing this platform, and I'll wrap it up with this, is I do want to get a bigger influence and raise more awareness for my veteran community. And, hopefully this projects that and we can start turning the goal and the dream of that into the reality. So that's the ultimate goal. Well, that'll be it. Let's wrap it up. Appreciate y'all listening. Comment, Say I'm great, say I suck. I don't care. Just comment, subscribe, like, hate on me. It is what it is. And peace. Love y'all. I'm out.